Good morning, friends. Today we will discuss this poem, The Second Coming, which is there in your syllabus, and it is a widely anthologized poem. Many of the books have taken their names, their titles from this poem. So we will have a short introduction. So before moving into the poem, we will discuss, in very shortly about W.B. Yeats. W.B. Yeats is a modernist poet. Basically his poems are very much there in the well-known anthologies of modernist poetry. Even not an anthology and many anthologies. It's rather than being in anthologies, he uses some kind of stylistic technique used in modernist poetry. Okay, modernist poetry doesn't mean that the poem that is written in the modern time, but it has some certain features that we will discuss in some other classes. So it is a modernist poet and also a dramatist. He actually founded this Abbey Theatre or Irish National Theatre, which played an important role in Irish Renaissance. Irish Renaissance, Ireland has a different history, from the mainlands of Britain. Ireland has a different history. They have a different tradition and culture. So it was in some more way there is a tense relationship with Britain and this Irish Revolution, all those things that has been discussed by W.B. Yeats. So Irish National Theatre is looking back to the Irish tradition and Irish history and motivating people for an Irish means it's a creating, it's part and parcel of Irish Revolution and Irish Renaissance, Irish literary revival. And Maud Gonne is a lady whom Yeats was in love with, and this woman has influenced this love, not this woman exactly, has influenced many of his writings, like his A Prayer for My Daughter, and even in Easter 1916. In those poems you will find the influence of this love, which is not connected, which is unrequited love, right? Now he got Nobel Prize, which is the best international prize to honor a writer. So he got Nobel Prize in 1923. Now his important poetical works, we are just giving here a list: The Wandering of Ossian and other poems, The Countess of Kathleen and various legends and lyrics. These are his collection in the 7 books. The Tower is one of the famous collection, Winding Stair and other poems. Okay. Now features of his poetry. If we identify some couple of features, general features of his poetry, we could say that first one is symbolism. His poems are full of symbols. Symbol is something. A symbol is something that stands for something else. For example, rose is a symbol of love, where rose stands not for rose itself but for love. Love is a different thing, rose is a different thing. So while rose becoming symbol of love, rose stands for love. Or for example, you could say the white color stands for peace. The color white and peace are two entirely different things, but white, you can draw some kind of internal connections but not explicitly. So an object that stands for something else is called symbol. So in Yeats' poetry you will find a lot of symbols. For example, many of the title of his work itself, The Tower, and there are a lot of other terms we have discussed. For example, the tower, the stair, okay, and tree. These are some of the symbols frequently used in Yeats' poetry. So he is very much fraught with symbols, full of symbols, rich with symbols. Symbols is some kind of object or a material which stands for something else. If you are using a rose to symbolify love, then rose is a symbol of love. Yeah. And now tower, chair and tree, these are some of the symbols. And one is sometimes he's stuck between this romanticism and modernism. You know, he, I think, I'm sorry. So in his poem there is a, for example, in his earlier poem there would be this lot of discussions of nature. Romanticism is all about love of nature, right? So life isle of Innisfree, where I don't know if I am talking the exact title of the poem, where that you're talking about that place where full of swans and all. I mean, in his earlier writing, you will find romanticism, the love for nature, very much articulated. And then later on, in his later poetry, you will find this modernist, technique of stylistic in his poetry. And obviously, so he came after this romantic people, and then his contribution extended to the modern period. And then obviously realism is there. Realism is, treating in literature the reality as it is, that is a realism. Then mythology and folklore. Yeats was kind of interested in mythology and folklore, which is sometimes very much antithetical to modernism. He, by going back to Irish mythologies and Irish folklore, he is raising a kind of critique to the modern ideas of language and modern ideas of literature. So he is very much interested in mythologies, and his poems are full of mythologies. You will find even this poem is about a mythology. Its title is coming from a religious mythology, but the second coming. There are a lot of mythologies, histories and folk traditions are referred in his poetry. And he was very much, part of this Irish national movement, and his poems like Easter 1916, where he, discussed the Irish politics and Irish revolution, that bloodshed and everything changed utterly. Those lines he's talking about this, Irish politics, and his Irish politics, his love to Mountgoney, and his personal life. All these three things are intertwined in his poems. Okay, so now we will move on to our poem. The present poem we are discussing is the Second Coming. We discuss only stanza 1 today, because I don't want to make this video a lengthy one. So we will discuss this first stanza. First of all, this has been written in 1920, and in the context of World War. After the First World War got over, it started in 1914, and it ended in 1918. So at that point of time, chaos was holding the world. Everywhere you will find the traditional systems are falling up, and a kind of an anarchy is, taking hold of the world. So he's talking about that kind of a chaotic situation in the Second Coming. He's compared that Second Coming. Obviously, the title, the Second Coming, is taken from the book of Revelations from the Bible, in which it is, it talk about the second coming of Jesus. Jesus' second coming means, obviously, it assumes that there was a first coming, right? So the second coming of the Jesus is to liberate the world when there is total anarchy and, lack of system, exploitation, So when all these laws of anarchy or exploitation and cruelty, injustice, lack of belief, all those things control the world, then Jesus Christ come back to bring back the system. So that is what, the reference of this title, the second coming of the Jesus. So yeah, that's our title, and it is written in 1920. Now, turning and turning in the widening jar, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the sender cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, the blood-dim tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the words are full of passionate intensity. Turning and turning in the widening jar. Turning and turning. Turning and turning. Moving and moving in the widening jar. Jar means in the widening circle, in the widening spiral. Okay, you are, somebody is, for example, is actually referring to the falcon, the bird which is used to trace the animals. Okay, when hunters are using some birds, right, they send the birds, and that birds will tell them where exactly the animals are, the prey are. Okay, that's what falcon. It's a kind of a traditional culture, okay, traditional institution. You will find it nowadays. We don't use, people won't use falcon. But earlier in an hunting, where hunting is an important part of the social life, or or livelihood, then people used this falcon, a bird, to identify some of the the prey. So turning and turning in the widening jar, moving and moving in this wide circle. Jar means a kind of a spiral or a circle. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. The bird, the falcon, that bird cannot hear the falconer, the owner, its owner, who sent that bird to identify or to trace the prey. So the connection between a falconer and falcon has lost. Means a traditional society has been completely destroyed and dismantled. All the tradition and all the systems called into question. Okay, so that's what he wanted to say. The falconer cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. Everything has been collapsed. Things fall apart. No system. Okay, so things fall apart. The center cannot hold. There is no center to hold. Center to hold means there is no system of administration, a system of regulation. In a system, in a regulation where you have to assume a center. So here, complete anarchy. So there is no center. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. In the world, everywhere you will find anarchy. Means lack of a system, full of chaotic, okay, chaos everywhere. Traditional society, traditional educational system, livelihood, everything has been called into question by the destruction of war. It became a big question mark, questioning everything, every institution, every tradition, every system. So things fall apart, things collapse, center cannot hold, and mere anarchy. The anarchy is lack of a system. The anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dim tide is loosed, and everywhere you will find blood-dim tide. Everything is has been touched by blood. Means there is killing. It can be, you can sometimes compare with T.S. Eliot's lines. We are in rat's alley where dead body lost their bonds. Human beings are in rat's alley where rats have taken their bonds. Means killing, bloodshed. It's a effect of the war. The blood dim, tide loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The ceremony of innocence is actually referring to the rituals of religion. In the rituals of religion, you will find an innocence. Actually, the modern logic of ritual is something that is not needed. Ritual is you are, practicing something on a regular basis without any kind of internal intellectual interaction with that action. For example, we are praying every day. Our prayer is not resulted from our intellectual engagement directly, but it has resulted from our mechanical routine of life. So, yeah, you will find these kinds of, instance of questioning the modern common sense very much there in W.B. Yeats. So, the ceremony of the innocence, you will find the innocence in the ritual, traditional religious rituals. That rituals are no more. The ceremony of innocence is drowned, means it has completely drowned this chaotic system. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. The best thing, the best and the worst. The best, you won't find any best thing has lost its, total sense, total conviction. While the worst, the bad things are ruling the world. Okay? While the bad things are ruling the world. The best lack all conviction, while the worst thing, the bad thing, are full of passionate intensity. There is again a connotation of passionate intensity. What is passionate is antithetical to good. Passionate intensity. The bad is full, it's in passionate vigor, in its energetic emotional state, while the good has completely lost. So there is a total chaotic system, turning and turning the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. A falcon that is moving in the circle, that flying here and there, that has lost its connection with its master. Okay, there is a complete collapse. It represents, it's a symbol. Falcon is, he is not actually talking about falcon as a falcon. He is actually talking about the social system where falcon is a symbol for human being and their system. The falcon cannot hear the falconer means the system has completely lost. Traditional system of understanding has completely collapsed. Things fall apart and center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed everywhere, and the tide and the waves are full of blood, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence has lost, and best has no conviction, and the worst things are with his full power, with full of his passionate emotional intensity. Okay, that's all, and the next stanza we will do in the next class. This poem has only 2 stanzas. Okay, good. So if you have any doubts, you can ask in the group.